Roll call.
Gray. Here. Harding. Here. Melton. Here. Pauls. Here. Palermo. Here. Festerson. Here. Mr. President.
Here. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance and remain, the opening remarks will be given by Councilmember Rich Pauls, and he's requested that everyone sit for his remarks.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I know. I wanted you to sit down because I just have a few things to say about the individuals who I've worked with the last few years. I'm going to start off, I don't know, most of you do not know the people who are behind the scenes who make the majority of us up here look pretty good because they help us out. And I want to thank those individuals from the clerk's office and also from City Council's office. There's some amazing people behind the scenes and other people who work with the departments in the city. But I need to talk a little bit about the individuals sitting in front of me. And I'm going to approach this. And by the way, my giving this speech today was just by luck because I rotated this time. So God was on my side. So I just want to just say a couple about some of the people sitting up in front of me. And I'm going to by their first names. Amy, who worked with a number of years, you might say. And I'm going to approach this. My background is education. So I'm going to approach these individuals like they were students that I may have known in the past. We all know Amy is one of those individuals you just have to like. Because that's part of her personality. And if some of you would know some of the things she's done for those people who came in front of us in the past and could not afford certain things, like there's shoveling of the snow and they got fined. For some reason, I'm not going to say Amy ever helped any of them, but I know I didn't financially. But I see Amy as a person who would be a teacher's pet, because she just knows how to do it. You know, you just like her, and she would give that teacher that apple, and she would just polish that apple up, and she just knows how to do it. Like, in other words, when she votes against one of your things that you're promoting, she still makes you feel good. She just has that in her. So she's one of those type of individuals. Now I'm going to talk about the next two people beside me. That's Brinker and Pete. They have a lot in common that you may not know about. And I'm just going to see, this is how I would see them when they were students. They would be those kids, remember, they'd be up to waving their hand because they had the question, or the answer to the question. They'd wave their hand and almost fall out of their chair, both of them. Just think about it. And I always liked those kids because I didn't want that teacher to ask me to try to answer that question. Well, that's how I see how they actually perceive this. There are times when they're asking questions to people in front of us. I want to say, guys, you're really digging down deep. They just keep going at it. I mean, they just keep attacking till they find what they're looking for. And at times I'm sitting up here and I say, okay, guys, but then it dawns on me, they're trying to find that answer. And they do a very good job of that. It not only helps the people sitting up here, but it also helps the people watching us. So that's the type of individuals they are. They both go at it different ways, but I see them as digging deep into the issues. Now, their apple that they would hand to the teacher would be applesauce. because they've worked so hard on that. They're trying to find the seeds. So their apples would be applesauce. Now, the person up here beside me, Ben, actually I was flipping channels last night, and he was on TV. And I was listening to what he had to say. I said, my goodness, I've been around him so long that I forgot that he's smarter than I really thought he was. I mean, he was just sitting up here. I thought he just one of the guys. But the questions, it was on SEB, and the history and the compliments that the other people were giving him was amazing. And I see him, this is how I would view him as the classroom. That kid who's that underdog, he would be defending him. He would be trying to help that kid out, because we know in every classroom there are some kids who are underdogs, and then there are some who are bullies. And that's how I see him. And his apple, before he gave it to the teacher, he said, could I slice part of this for this individual who has nothing? That's how I see this person. Now I'm looking at Vinny. Now, as a school principal, he would have visited me often. And before he gave that apple to that teacher, he would take a bite out of it. But here's one thing, and I hope people understand this, because those of us in the Vietnam era, you reflect on this, because I can remember, although I was not involved in Vietnam, but I knew a number of people. And if you were in a foxhole, you would want to have somebody in there who would defend you. And that would be Vinny. Now we come to Chris. You know, every once in a while in a classroom, a teacher has to leave the room because they're there for hours, mostly to go to the bathroom, because I can remember that. Chris would be the student the teacher would leave to be in charge of the classroom. And he would make sure if there were 12 apples up on that teacher's desk, that there would be 12 apples there when she got back. And I do think that the council will miss him because of his ability to run a meeting. And that's why I wouldn't mind having a drink with him to hear all of his stories, because he does know how to tell stories. And the last person that I like to talk about is the mayor. Now, I see the mayor as the keeper of the apples. Now, I don't know if you recognize this, but there's some apples that are delicious, because they're delicious because they're delicious. Then I'll pick on one, I don't even know if they have anymore, but as a kid, it was called a Jonathan. Now, that apple is a little bit tart. And every once in a while, the mayor not only sends us delicious apples, but she throws a tart one in there to make sure that we stay awake. And I have so much respect for her as the mayor that I have suggested in the past, I've teased her on this, but this has been legitimate teasing, that she ought to run for governor. I have that much more respect, so much respect for her. And that makes me lead back, because I left this out about Amy. I have so much respect for Amy that, as Karnak would say, a future judge or maybe a future attorney general. And that leads me to say that I view women as being those who haven't been appreciated as much politically. Because in the city of Omaha, as of, I think, the 2019 estimated survey of the number of people in Douglas County, there are actually more women than men. So I actually want everybody here to be reelected, because I know them. They're sincere about this. but I see Chris and I are not. So I think that we ought to be promoting women, at least in our positions, at least be running for it, for office. And I'm going to end up my little thing here by saying, of course, I'm an educator, and I've had a lot of philosophy classes, almost to the point of, I don't know if anybody who's has a degree in philosophy, you have to be crazy. I mean, because of all the different individuals out there. So I started reviewing some of my past people that I had to study in philosophy, so I ended up with this one, Dr. Seuss. And this is what my thing would be. Do not be sad that it is over. Be happy that it began. And I thank you for giving me this time to stand in front of you, taking more. Ooh, my goodness. 10 minutes. Slap me down. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Pauls, and a wise man he is, because he made us all commit that we would not roast him today, so he did the reverse roast, having that commitment from us. And we said, be careful, because there's a building we know he doesn't like in Miller. We may just have to name that after him. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to this meeting of the Omaha City Council. We thank you for joining us today. As a courtesy to those in attendance and to facilitate the conduct of our business, we ask that you please turn off or silence all electronic devices. The first item on the agenda today is the election for the to fill the vacancy created by Councilmember Rich Pauls resigning his position on January 5. The first thing we will need to do is suspend City Council Rule 5C to allow us to take votes by roll call. No, roll call?
Real quick. An affidavit of publication is on file for the pre-council and city council meeting, and a current copy of the Open Meeting Act is posted in a white binder on the east wall of the legislative chambers. Gray.
Yes.
Harding.
Yes.
Melton.
Yes.
Pauls.
Yes.
Palermo.
Yes.
Festerson. Mr. President.
Yes.
Motion passed 7-0.
Council members will note there are ballot forms on before them. We will proceed by round. The first round, we will vote, initial the ballot form. The clerk will then collect them and tally them. If someone achieves 4 or more votes on that ballot, she will inform me. I will announce the winner, and she will then call the roll of how the ballots were cast by council member. If not, we will continue doing so until someone has 4 votes. So please remember to check or X the person you're voting for and initial at the top of the ballot, and the clerk will collect the forms. Thank you.
Can there be a motion to commence the voting in a second?
Roll call?
No roll call. You're voting by ballot.
Okay. While they're counting them, I'll just let you know there's no white smoke or dark smoke that comes from this chamber. So those outside will have to wait until they see it on the news or read in the paper. The clerk has announced we have a majority. We have the 5 votes in the majority for Colleen Brennan. The clerk will now announce the ballots for all candidates.
5 for Colleen Brennan, 1 vote for Don Rowe, and 1 vote for Jeffrey Moore.
The ballots are a matter of public record. The clerk will release them if the media has requests. She can also read them now. It's up to the council and your wish. We can. Okay. Okay. Without objection, clerk will read the ballots.
All right. Ben Gray is Colleen Brennan. Rich Pauls, Colleen Brennan. Chris Jerem, Colleen Brennan. Vinnie Palermo, Colleen Brennan. Pete Festerson, Colleen Brennan. Amy Melton, Don Rowe. Brinker Harding, Jeffrey Moore.
Thank you. Congratulations, council member-elect Colleen Brennan. She will be sworn in on Tuesday, the 12th of January. Okay. I don't see her here. Madam Clerk.
All right, items 7 through 10 can be considered together for Bluestem Meadows, located northwest of 180th and Blondo Streets. Planning Board and Planning Department recommend approval. Items 7 and 8 are ordinances to rezone this property from AG District to DR District and R4 District. Item 9, a resolution to approve the final plat for Bluestem Meadows. Item 10, a resolution to approve the Bluestem Meadows subdivision agreement.
The public hearing on items 7 through 10 begin at this time. Are there any proponents?
Yes, thank you, Mr. President, members of the council. Larry Jobin, 11440 West Center Road, appearing on behalf of the developer. With me today is Cal Bowl of E&A Consulting, the consulting engineers on this particular project. We're here for questions, if you have any.
Thank you. Are there any other proponents? Are there any opponents? The public hearing is closed. Roll call.
Gray. Harding. Melton. Pauls. Palermo. Festerson. Mr. President.
Yes.
Motion passed 7-0. Item 11, a resolution to approve a special use permit to allow auto sales in a CC district located at 7802 Military Avenue. Planning Board and Planning Department recommend approval.
The public hearing on item 11 begins at this time. We have a proponent registered to speak on behalf of the project, Dan Dozel, 3552 Farm Street. Is he in the queue? Thank you. Go
Good
ahead,
afternoon.
Mr. Dozel.
Thanks. I had to unmute. I was waiting for the direction. Thank you. I'm just here to answer questions. We've met all the conditions and all. Actually, having lived in this area for the last 45 years, I can tell you that site's been sporadic in use, and I think this is probably a good fit with a good client and a good addition to the area. So I'm here to answer any questions.
Thank you. You are Dan Dozel, 3552 Farm Street, right?
That's correct. I'm sorry.
Thank you. Are there any other proponents? Are there any opponents? The public hearing is closed. Councilmember Festerson, you're recognized.
This isn't my district, and it's, as Mr. Dozel noted, it's at 7802 Military Ave. And so right across the street is really one of the entryways into the Keystone neighborhood. And then just down the street is Marion High School. And he's correct in his characterization of this particular corner that it has been auto sales for quite some time, or formerly you might say, because it's been vacant for a period of time. But does certainly lack a visual appeal that would be great to have on that corner. So I appreciate what we're doing here with the special use permit. Dan, I know you may not be able to show a visual, but could you just describe the improvements that will be made to that corner as a result of this proposal? And in particular, I'm interested in the landscaping.
Sure. Let me quick pull up that plan. Generally, it's really cleaning up the site. There's 3 entrances right now, one off of 78th Street, 2 off of Military. We're eliminating the 2 exits on the Military on that busy highway. So from a safety standpoint, a practicality standpoint, that's a big plus, I think, for everybody involved in using that area. We're putting in a screen on a landscape shrub screen with trees along Military Avenue. We're adding, I think it's 3, 6, 8 trees along the west side between the building and the property line and the residents to the west. We've added 5 trees along 78th Street, we've eliminated and pulled back some of the concrete pavement that's inside of that area, inside of that property, in order to better meet the intended guidelines and setbacks for any kind of improvements in landscape buffers and that type of thing. He's already, I think, painted the building and done some exterior stuff that he felt safe in doing right now. So it's going to go a long ways, Mr. Festerson, to kind of reestablish maybe this corner into something more appealing.
Great. I appreciate that. And the only access thing you said is off 78th Street, no longer military?
That's correct.
And how about pedestrian improvements right there?
We are adding sidewalk along the highway. I'm sorry, I overlooked that. We're putting in a 5-foot sidewalk along Military that'll terminate as his property line. Now, it doesn't connect anything to the west, but typically in these types of improvements, we add sidewalks in, and that infills as building permit applications are registered with adjoining properties as they're slowly improved.
Great. Thank you. I agree those will be welcome improvements to that corner. And I would go ahead and motion approval.
Roll call.
Gray. Harding. Melton. Pauls. Palermo. Festerson. Mr. President.
Yes.
Motion passed 7-0. Item 12, an application to consider a Class C liquor license for Javi's Taco located at 17676 Welch Plaza, Unit 9.
Public hearing on item 12 begins at this time. We have Sean Kelly registered as the first proponent on behalf of the applicant. Go ahead, Mr.
Good afternoon, Mr. President, members of the council. Sean Kelly, 2804 South 87th Avenue, appearing on behalf of the applicant. This particular location is a restaurant. It's in operation now, approximately 3,300 square feet. With that, I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you. Are there any other proponents wishing to be heard? Are there any opponents? The public hearing is closed. Roll call.
Gray. Harding. Melton. Pauls. Palermo. Festerson. Mr. President.
Yes.
Motion passed 7-0. Item 13, to consider a change of location application for Ray's Original Buffalo Wings Class I liquor license, currently located at 120 South 31st Avenue, Suite 5103, to be located at 200 South 31st Avenue, Suite 4103, and to change the trade name to Ray's A's Communication and Support.
Public hearing on item 13 begins at this time. Are there any proponents?
Yes, I'm Ray Bullock. I'm the owner with my family. I'm just here to answer any questions you may have.
Just moving across the street?
We're moving about 300 feet literally to the west over in what is now the remodeled Crave restaurant area.
Great. Are there any other proponents? Are there any opponents? The public hearing is closed. Second, roll call.
Gray. Harding. Melton. Pauls. Palermo. Festerson. Mr. President.
Yes.
Motion passed 7-0. Consent agenda. Any member of the City Council may cause any item placed on the consent agenda to be removed. Items removed from the consent agenda shall be taken up by the City Council immediately following the consent agenda in the order in which they were removed, unless otherwise provided by the City Council Rules of Order.
The public hearing on agenda items 14 through 18 were held on December 15, 2020. Councilmember Melton, you're recognized.
Thank you. I didn't know if anyone was here. You know, over the years, I've gotten a lot of comments on about the billing and collection services because the company is out of state, and a number of constituents have made comments. And I believe it's been my understanding that we actually do put this out for bid. It's very specialized, and we rarely get more than one. And I didn't know if there was anyone that could confirm that and maybe just provide a brief statement. Is there anyone here from the mayor's office? Finance?
Finance here. Donna?
Okay.
Waller?
Oh, there you are. Sorry, can't see you with behind the podium.
Welcome, Ms. Waller.
Donna Waller, City Finance, 1819 Farm Street. We had two bids, both of which were out of state. So,
And that's what I just want to let people know, because I do get a number of people, they say, why when I'm mailing my, my annual fee, is it going to, I think it was St. Louis previously?
right.
Why
Now
is
it
Why is
actually,
it, and it says City of Omaha and then has a,
yeah, we do
an address.
use a local lockbox now through First National. But when they talk to somebody, they're talking to someone out of state.
and we're required by city charter to put things like this out for bid, correct?
Right, yeah.
And so if we only get 2 bidders and they're both from out of state, we really don't have any control over that. And
Correct.
my understanding is that this kind of billing is very specialized, and
Yeah.
at this point, we don't know of anyone locally that does it. Is that correct?
Correct. And they work very well with like the 911 system as far as, record keeping and that type of thing also.
Okay.
And just for your information, Douglas County is also hiring the same company. They passed an ordinance, well, I'm not sure what they passed, but they passed so they could also do an alarm billing now also.
Okay, so they bid the same, a similar,
Yeah.
they had a similar bid out,
Yeah.
and got the same response, basically a similar response?
Correct.
Okay, because it is something I wish there was somebody locally, but
Correct.
it's my understanding that there's nobody local that actually practices in this, so maybe a niche area for a small business to think about if they want to open one in the local area. Maybe the next time this goes out, we could get a local bid. So I wanted to share that
Clarify.
explanation, so I appreciate you being here and being able to share that. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. We have a motion, a second. Roll call.
Gray. Harding. Melton. Pauls. Palermo. Festerson. Mr. President.
Yes.
Motion passed 7-0.
The public hearings on agenda items 19 through 44 are today. If you wish to address the city council regarding these items, please come to the microphone, indicate the agenda item number you wish to address, identify yourself by your name, address, who you represent, if you are a proponent or opponent. The public hearing is closed. Oh, I'm sorry. Sarah Johnson registered on item 28. You're recognized, Ms. Johnson.
Hi, thank you. Trying the Zoom thing out for the first time. I appreciate it. My name is Sarah Johnson, 2316 North 52nd Street. Can you hear me okay?
Absolutely perfectly.
Awesome. Okay, probably too clear. Anyway, I'm speaking today in support of this resolution, number 28, regarding curb cuts and ADA compliance, because I recently had an interesting experience with Public Works and their understanding, or lack thereof, with the Americans with Disabilities Act, or the ADA, and specifically curb cuts. The recent project that ignored ADA requirements is on Ames Street between 60th and 66th. There are new sections of sidewalk, street panels, and concrete curbs all along both sides of Ames, but they have no curb cuts or ramps. Since that seemed contrary to what I know about ADA requirements, I called the mayor's hotline for more information. I was then instructed to call the Public Works Department, which I did, then told to call someone else. Then they finally called me back, someone who knows more about ADA. It was a guy with maintenance and public works, and he told me since it was just part of a panel replacement contract, it didn't need to have curb cuts. But if I had more questions about that specific project, to call a gentleman, Todd Sparks, also in public works. So of course I did, because I have free time and tenacity. So anyway, Mr. Sparks was nice enough, but basically told me that the Ames Street situation was fine, and specifically said the contractor on that project, quote, didn't have enough time to build the curbs within ADA requirements. That did not sit well with me. And so I called the state ADA coordinator, who was very helpful. I explained the situation to her, and she was actually appalled that I was told that it wasn't a big deal. In fact, she told me that it was illegal and the Department of Justice could get involved if it wasn't addressed, which could result in a really hefty fine to the city of Omaha. She also helped me understand that actually the bare minimum in 2020, actually since the 80s, is to add ramps wherever they resurface or replace curbs. The only time it's not a requirement is if it's just like a pothole situation. Since this was actual curbs, it should have been properly installed with ADA ramps. She also told me that she'd get in touch with our city's ADA coordinator, Gerald Kuhn, who I didn't really know about, and also that would have been a cool opportunity for the mayor's hotline to direct me to him instead of Public Works. Anyway, she got in touch with him, and his name again, Gerald Kuhn, helped him educate the Public Works director about the situation, Bob Stubbe. I'm just going to read a quick little quip from her email to me. Gerald, he spoke with the head of Public Works. He received the same sort of response you did. He informed him that it was inaccurate and asked me to provide some backing for those statements. It does sound like this sidewalk will be fixed appropriately in the spring. Thanks for reaching out. This was a great teachable moment for the head of Public Works and will change countless sidewalks moving forward. So I just want to make sure this is a teachable moment for all of us, and we understand that cutting corners is not good. Just because there wasn't enough time to do it right seemed really inappropriate to me. So just wanted to kind of make sure that the head of the department understands what's going on, and if he's the one that's overseeing all these projects, but he's ignoring decades-old requirements, just kind of makes me wonder what else isn't being built properly. So anyway, I guess I just really hope that with this project that I know it's an amendment to about a $11 million project with curb cuts in various locations throughout the city. It was hard for me to figure out exactly where this was being addressed, but hopefully it's Ames Street and all over the city, because that way it will be a lot more accessible and equitable place to live.
Thank you. Public hearing is closed. Councilmember Festerson, you're recognized.
On that item, I did receive that email also from Ms. Johnson, so I did some follow-up on that this morning, and we had a brief discussion with Director Stubbe. If you might come down, Bob, I'll give you the opportunity to address the ADA situation in general, but then if you would address Ames Street in particular, 60th to 66th Street there, which is actually in Councilman Gray's district, but is a close border to mine.
Bob Stubbe, Public Works.
So general comments on the ADA situation citywide, and then I think you also indicated this morning that the Ames Street 60th to 66 will be addressed.
Correct. So typically what happens with ADA is that it's two separate type of contractors, normally what we use. And so Ms. Johnson mentioned about resurfacing. So traditionally what we do on resurfacing, we'll go in and do the ADA ramps ahead of time with a separate contractor, and then we'll come in and do the resurfacing. This particular contract that we used on Ames Avenue was just doing panel repair, so the ADA ramps will be done subsequent to the actual work that was done on Ames.
And what's the timeline for that?
And that will be done next year.
Okay. And can you give us reassurance that Public Works is in fact attuned and following the ADA requirements throughout the city?
Yes, in fact, a couple things. One is that we did have before I came to the city, there was a judgment against the city. We went through and updated a lot of streets that were identified by the DOJ, and we were essentially released of that particular claim a number of years back. The other thing that's happened in the past is that Federal Highway has dictated to the DOT that they need to come in and look at cities. They've done that for us, and they're satisfied with our program.
Thank you. Also, it's not directly related to this particular issue or this particular contract, but it was something we just discussed too, in terms of the Vision Zero employee that I think was just hired. Can you talk to the council about that a little bit and tell us when that person starts?
That person will start on Monday of next week.
Within your department?
Within my department. That individual will reside in our traffic engineering.
And will be focused on what initially?
I would probably have Todd Fitzer come down and specifically talk to those particular things that he's going to focus in on initially.
Okay.
Okay.
Todd Fitzer, Public Works, 1819 Farnham. That individual, his name is Jeff Subject. He starts Monday. I kind of teased with him a little bit, told him he'll be the most introduced person in Public Works, probably in the history of Public Works, because he'll be working with the Vision Zero group. He'll be working with the Active Living Advisory Committee. He'll be working very closely with our planners on our Complete Streets effort. Of course, be working within Public Works. Really, the Vision Zero, if you're not familiar with the term, is trying to get our fatalities on our streets as low as possible. So hence the name, the vision is zero fatalities. We don't know if that's achievable. We hope it is, but that's the goal. So he'll be looking at specifically safety problem areas, whether it's pedestrians, bikes, vehicles, whatever, high crash locations, kind of the red dots that show up on our maps for areas that could use safety improvements. We go monthly. We have 2 people from our traffic department that goes down to the state safety committee meetings every month. Mr. Subject will be part of that effort, specifically focusing on safety and what can we do. We got some neighborhoods that we're looking at safety funding for specific intersections where there's high accident locations. What can be done? If a signal is no longer warranted, could it be a roundabout? Can we use traffic calming efforts? Different things like that. Mr. Subject will be involved in those types of efforts. So I'm really excited we're at this point. I think it's a much needed addition, and I'm happy that Monday's almost here. And I'm looking forward to introducing him to this council.
Thank you, yeah. And along those lines, I think maybe we'd request to bring him to our next Public Works Committee meeting.
We will plan, yes, sir, we will.
Great. And I imagine Ames Street might be a candidate for him to look at, as long as we're talking about that. Thank you.
You're welcome.
And with that, I'll motion to approve items 19 through 44.
Gray. Harding. Melton. Pauls. Palermo. Festerson. Mr. President.
Yes.
Motion passed 7-0. Item 45, an ordinance to amend ordinance number 42269, approving a service agreement with Ademia to lease a ruggedized live scan station for digital fingerprinting for a term of 5 years.
The public hearing on item 45 begins at this time. Are there any proponents? Are there any opponents? Public hearing is closed.
Item 46, an ordinance to amend section 23-177 of the Omaha Municipal Code by adding the employment classification entitled Street Maintenance Manager. Personnel Board recommends approval.
The public hearing on item 46 begins at this time. Are there any proponents?
Todd Fitzer, Public Works. This is a position, as you know, we lost our street maintenance engineer last March. We attempted to fill that position. We advertised it. We did not get qualified candidates to come in. My department then worked with HR on a solution. If we can't get a registered PE in here to fill that CEVOR position, what can we do? What are some other municipalities doing? I've met with some members of council. I have documents here that I've shared. If any of you need those or want those documents, please let me know. Otherwise, I'm here to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you. Are there any other proponents?
Deb Sander, Human Resources Director for the city, 1819 Farnham, here to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you. Are there any other proponents? Are there any opponents? Public hearing is closed. Council Vice President Palermo, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. President. And just a couple quick questions, if I could. Director, if you could come up for me. I'll get everybody up to speed on where we're at here. He's probably going to want your name and address.
Deb Sander, City HR Director.
Thank you.
Thank you. So a couple of these documents I have in front of me obviously are for the creation of the street maintenance manager, which is a very important position, right? That's why we created it. So could you tell me, have we as the city of Omaha ever not had a street maintenance engineer in this position?
Going back at least the last 10 years, we have had an engineer in this position. Before that, there was a gentleman who filled in for the position who was not an engineer. So that was beyond 10 years ago.
Was that filled in until we hired an engineer, or was that filled in for a prolonged period of employment?
It was almost 3 years.
Okay.
And then the person retired.
Okay, because I want to stress how important it is that if this job calls for an engineer, then that's probably what we should have in the position. But I also understand that things change, and we put out new jobs based on what we need, and if we can't get them, then maybe we go a different route. But let me ask you, this is a job that is far from entry level. I'll just say this job pays $116,000 a year. So when you post this job, what is the usual criteria for pulling it down and giving up?
Well, we did post the civil engineer for position, and we had the posting up for, I believe, over a month, and we're receiving applications from applicants. We received 2 qualified applicants, and then one of which took the design engineering position, and the other person wasn't a good fit for this position, for the street maintenance position. After having, tried to get someone with a PE, we revised a class, or created a class specification that took the engineering portion out and left in only the maintenance position for streets. So the engineering portion will be covered by, I'm sure Mr. Fitzer,
I have more information on that too.
he could explain that to you, but this is particularly looking at just the street maintenance, and we modeled it after some of our comparable cities, Madison, Wisconsin, Oklahoma City, and St. Paul, Minnesota, that they have this type of thing where the engineering is done by some other position, and this position focuses on the street maintenance, from the snow plowing to the pothole filling, those kinds of things. Did I answer your question?
Yes, you did.
Okay.
So a follow-up, just so I'm perfectly clear, we posted a spot that pays $116,000. Well, I take that back.
It was
We
more.
posted a spot that paid a lot more money, and we only posted it for 1 month. Is that normal? Do we give it
Normally, we only
longer?
post for 2 weeks, and we did quite some advertising in the engineering trades, but that's what we got, was 2 applicants.
In 1 month, 2 applicants.
Mhm.
And,
Yes, sir.
and for a job of this quality and qualification we're looking for, we only give it 1 month?
That's what we did in this particular case, yes, sir.
Okay. So I will say that I looked up during the meeting. I'm happy to say that last Friday we did post for an AE01 position, which I brought up last week, and we'll get into why that's important. But I understand we need to do what we have to help attract quality candidates. But I think for a job that, if I remember right, paid $130, $140, that we would give it more than a month. Because if we're not, then it seems like we're just trying to create something and go a different route. So I do have some more questions for Public Works, but that's it for now. Thank you. So Mr. Fitzer, if you want to make your way up, I have a couple questions as well.
Todd Fitzer, Public Works.
So we know how important Public Works is. Obviously I don't have to tell that to anybody. These are the basic city services that everybody, whether you live here or just come to Omaha to work, this is what you have, right? So I understand we couldn't find a qualified applicant within a month. So we changed the classification, and we also lessened the pay. So now it's down to 116. So I assume this will help us find some qualified applicants. But what my colleagues have to keep in mind and remember is that as we're short the workers who actually do the work, there is 0 openings for a Foreman 1. And now we're creating a job to be in charge of the employees that we're right now, as of today, 33 people short. So we got 0 openings for a foreman. We're creating a job to be in charge of a department that's 33 employees short. And as of last week, it wasn't even posted. If you're 33 employees short, it should never come down. Mr. Fitzer, tell me, since it wasn't posted last week due to testing, how many people applied for that AE01 spot? If you would know.
I don't know exactly.
Okay.
That's an HR number.
We had 15 people that took the test, the examination, and 15 people were certified on the list as of yesterday afternoon. Those referrals were already made to the Streets Department, Streets Division of the Public Works Department. So it wasn't posted last week because we were testing. As soon as the testing was complete and the list was certified, we reposted the position, and then the referrals were made yesterday afternoon. And there were 15 people on the list, and they were all referred to Public Works.
Okay, thank you. And please don't think that this is a reflection of your department that works very hard, but this is a continued issue. So thank you, Director. And the problem with this issue that I have is we didn't post the job long enough, whether we would have got a qualified candidate or not. But then what we did is we went and created a position. And even if the 15 people pan out, which we know how that works, 5 won't show up the first day, the other 5 will figure out something else. That leaves us with 5. we're still short. This position should never stop being posted. And if you're going to stop posting it, then don't hire a boss for these employees. People are listening. People understand. These are the basic city services. And it hasn't changed. So I'm going to bring it up every single meeting until it's filled. And I do not want to hear excuses about, well, MED takes everybody. MEDs have been around for 100 years. Okay? They haven't taken our employees for 100 years. There's a problem here, and we need to fix it. And fixing the problem doesn't come from creating jobs for $116,000 to represent the employees that aren't there. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Palermo. I have a question for Ms. Sanders. In terms of this position, assuming there's a vote and the vote passes, this becomes approved, is this a position that is advertised externally, open and competitive, or is it, or could it possibly be just posted internally and filled within the department?
That is an option, but the Public Works Department has requested that it be open competitive.
Okay. In terms of, Mr. Fitzer, would you come up?
Fitzer, Public Works.
Has the department made any internal preferences or encouraged anyone internally to say, hey, you need to apply for this? This is a position we want you to apply for, because if you do, we'll look favorably upon
No.
it. The reason I bring this up is, and I've mentioned this not just with your department, with other departments, and I've on the HR committee mentioned it to the HR directors. There's a perception by those who don't work for the city but might be interested in working for the city that somehow this is a process of getting employed here that's it's a who you know, and it's not an open process. So anything we can do for positions like these that are created, or even those that are just vacant and we're refilling, that we can have a transparent, open, competitive process to the public, is something that we want to encourage, so that we can dispel the perception and hopefully change people's minds about how the employment opportunities for the city are handled here. So I thank you for that words of transparency there, Mr. Pfister, and thank you, Ms. Sander. No further lights.
Non-action items, items 47 through 60, do not require public hearing or city council consideration at this meeting, but will be placed on a future agenda for public hearing and or vote. The reason for non-action is noted after the item on the agenda, as well as the date the item is expected to appear on agenda for consideration.
The City Council will not meet on December 29, 2020, and January 5, 2021. We'll resume January 12, 2021. Roll call.
Gray. Harding. Melton. Pauls. Palermo. Festerson. Mr. President.
Yes.
Motion passed 7-0. Meeting is adjourned at 2:47.